Hello, Mr. Akamatsu. Thank you for joining the interview with VITV today. In 2012, the banking sector in Pacific Ocean and Asian faces with both disadvantages and advantages. So, in your opinion, what do those factors affect Vietnamese banking sector as well?
Banking sector and banking services in Asia has not been very the sophisticated. It really focused on the core basic banking services until recently. The one of the benefit coming out of from it, the banks in Asia didn't suffer directly from or didn't cause the recent global financial crisis, unlike the time in 97, 98. The recent global crisis was started in the United States and spreading worsened in Europe. The banks in Asia have been reasonably well capitalized, quite well capitalized in fact, and has adequate liquidity. So they have been well positioned to deal with these shocks coming outside the region. So that's the general advantage the banks in Asia has had. But as I said in the beginning, it is partly because the financial services in Asia has not attained a very sophisticated level. So it is also partly a challenge as well.
The restructuring process in Vietnam is assessed to be very slower than expected. So, in your opinion, what are the reasons for this statement of other international institutions?
The basically the key principles or key objectives of promoting a development financial sector is very much to attain the efficiency and the stability, while at the same time offering better access for users of this banking and financial services. In attaining these key objectives, I think there are different ways at a different level of economic development of underlying economy. For example, if the authority tries to attain the stability, when the banking system faces some difficult situation, one simple way is to provide a blanket guarantee. The government says, we guarantee, so don't worry, and gives this security to the mind of people or depositors that banks may have some problem, but your deposit will be will be kept safe. So that sort of message, that sort of policy actions can certainly stabilize the banking system. Is it a good way? It's generally speaking, it's not the most ideal way to ensure the stability. But depending on the situation in which the country is in, and depending on the policy options available for the country, that sort of approach may be chosen to ensure the stability. I think Vietnam so far has made use of that approach. With that, Vietnam could maintain reasonable stability of banking system, despite the fact that there are problems. But because Vietnam took that approach, I think it could buy time and try to come up with the most ideal ways to restructure the banking system. Restructuring of banking system is always political. The interest of different parties often get involved. So it's a very difficult process, and buying time to sort things out is one way to do it. Yes, there is a perception and views that it has been very slow, slower than it should be. But that's at least one way to approach to this problem at the level of the development of underlying economy is considered.
VAMC is a very hot topic recently, but there seems to be many concerns about this organization. So, in your opinion, what should the government do to clear out the way for the VAMC to be effective?
Well, I'm also very much looking forward to hearing more details about these asset management companies. This institution will be very, very important in the government's effort to restructure the banking system. But there are many details which are not yet clear. And some of the details which have been made clear or announced, to my mind, a little bit questionable. For one thing, I think I mentioned three things during my presentation. One thing was the pricing or valuation of non-performing loans to be acquired by AMC. According to the press, in my understanding from the press, it is said that non-performing loans are to be acquired at book value. That doesn't seem very appropriate and acquired by the AMC. And the second issue is the pricing of the bonds that the AMC is going to issue and then place to those financial institutions. According to the press, it is said that the bonds will have no interest. And I'm trying to understand this logic. It doesn't make sense for AMC or even government to give bonds to the financial institutions, struggling financial institutions, the bonds that doesn't pay interest. The banks are suffering from non-performing loans, and this non-performing loans has to be changed into a high-quality asset, which has a solid value in itself, and pay a fair rate of return. So that's what the high-quality asset means as far as finance is concerned. But if AMC gives bonds which doesn't pay interest, that instrument doesn't help banks to enhance their financial health. Those are the two aspects, some specific information we have heard and came up with a question mark. Firstly, this valuation of non-performing loans to be acquired by AMC. Secondly, the pricing or the yield or interest on the bonds that the AMC is issued to financial institutions. Those are two areas. The third aspect that we very much like to hear more detail is how this institution will be designed in a legal sense. We heard it will be a 100% state-owned institution, and we heard it will be placed under the guidance of State Bank of Vietnam. If the AMC is issuing government-guaranteed bonds, it is the government which is taking the risk of financial institutions and giving equity and becoming an owner, partial owner of those institutions. Legally speaking, if the bonds in the name of State Bank of Vietnam is to be given to financial institutions, I think it makes more sense that if State Bank of Vietnam becomes owner of those financial institutions. If bonds are really issued in the name of AMC alone, then the AMC should be a legal owner of those financial institutions. All these details will impact on the credibility of these resolution measures being applied to financial institutions, and the credibility and also the creditworthiness of an asset management company. It's 100% state-owned, but if they acquire non-performing loans at a face value, then it almost by definition will be incurring losses. If NPLs are left with banks, banks will be incurring losses. And that loss-making asset is being transferred to AMC. The AMC will for sure making losses if it is not fairly valued at the time of acquisition. And AMC has only 500 billion Vietnam dong of equity, which is small. It easily wipes out this equity unless continuous financial support is given by the government to the AMC. All these details are very, unclear and also questionable at this stage. I'm sure some new details will come out from the policy debate among the authority, which I very much hope to hear very soon.
One of the ways to restructure the bank is by the AMC. And what do you think the commercial banks in Vietnam should do to restructure themselves?
Well, first of all, these ways to resolve non-performing loans by use of AMC. This will be very, very important in the sense that it should not clean up the entire NPLs. Part of the NPLs should be left with banks. And banks themselves work on cleaning up these NPLs. If AMC get rid of all NPLs from banks, then the banks will just wash hands and they do nothing. They have to be motivated to enhance, as you said, the risk management and then avoid repeating the same mistake in the future. To do that, in order to encourage them to do so, some stress of the current problem should be left with the banks. So it is one thing I very much agree with the current thinking of the policymakers of Vietnam is that half of the NPLs may be tackled by AMC, but the other half will be left with the financial institution. That I think is a good thing. And under that challenge and in a way stress, banks should work on improving their risk management. In terms of techniques and approaches for risk management, there are many, many good textbooks and standard knowledge available. But what needs to be kept in mind, in my view, is that when the boom occurs, economic boom occurs, banks tend to be too excited. And this is very difficult to overcome just by rules. What happened is that not just the bank as an institution, but the individual banker, particularly credit officer, their performance is usually evaluated in the amount they lend. So they compete individually, they compete with each other in lending more and more. And as they lend more, their performance is recognized, their salary may be increased, they were maybe given a high bonus, and because they are driven by such a bonus and a reward, they try so aggressively to lend more and more. That becomes overall credit growth of an institution and even the banking sector as a whole. So this is not just an institution level risk management issue. This is also about remuneration or salary kind of approach to individual bankers and also the executives of banks, which get rewarded and paid for short-term achievement of the banking services. That is wrong. That aspect needs to be changed. So the banking institution definitely needs to enhance their assessment of creditworthiness of borrowers. They have to have a framework to analyze the risks arising from the portfolio of loans and some connected lending and concentration of lending to a certain sector or certain companies. Those all needs to be managed, but those are techniques. But equally important, as I said, the incentives prevailing within the banks as a business, and incentives given to each individual bankers, as well as the executives of the banks. All these so-called governance, internal management issue has to be addressed.
Thank you for joining the interview with VITV today. Thank you.